Welcome back to the show. Dana and I are back for another episode. Hi, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Gwen, today?
I'm doing really great, Dana. Thanks for asking.
I think you're masking because I know that you traveled and didn't get to bed till 2 a.m.
Well, would it surprise you to know that you know me well?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
my
Dana. Yeah. Yes. I would be because I am very tired and putting myself in a mental space to support people today.
There you
So,
go.
yeah. So coffee's on board.
Great. Yep. I got a request on TikTok, and I did a video on what is called kind of the soft signs of neurodiversity or autism. And by that, it's not meant like the lesser signs.
Yeah.
To me, that meant more like things that are lived experience that aren't in the DSM, that maybe your average lay person or your average psychologist who doesn't know neurodiversity well would know what those are.
Yeah.
And so, things like I'm surprised how many people don't know about like clothing issues or sensitivities around that. Like that, I can spot a neurodivergent at a mile if they've cut their tags out of everything. That's not the
Totally.
DSM,
Or like the type
right?
of socks that they buy.
Or they don't wear socks at all. I put a
Yeah.
picture that I saw on the internet that made my skin crawl on TikTok, which it has those socks that have the toes in them. I'm getting all like freaked out even thinking about the picture again. Everybody said, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, no, no, no." And then one person said, "No, I need those because it separates my toes, and my toes touching drives me crazy." And I was like, "Oh." What I loved about that response was, see, not 100% of people are going to look at that same stimulus and go in a predictable way.
Right. Yeah.
And it's worth that digging in more, right? So you'll see
Yeah.
things like the DSM doesn't talk about repeating foods a lot every day. Literally, it's like not in there. They'll talk about that rigidity. They don't talk about, there's nothing in there about insomnia or having sleep difficulties, right? There's nothing in there about things like that are more hidden stems that response to my video where there was a lot of those, like counting or doing things that the DSM or a psychologist that doesn't know about it would just label negatively with OCD. But things like counting in my head or visualizing things sort of evenly, or I'll have to do a movement to make things even, or imagining moving shapes around in my head because it's like a portable stim, right? Things that people don't notice, just like rubbing your fingernails together or something soft on there. Watching the same show over and over and over, listening to the same music over and over. Those are categories that people that don't know neurodivergence well, psychologists would look at and say, "Oh, those are obsessive behaviors. We need to stop those. We need to get rid of them because it's in that rigidity thing, right?" But there's so much of it, like the internal world stuff, that I see as soft signs that people don't understand at all. That routine is literally, like I mentioned in the video before about how off my routine got from the cast that I have to wear for a while, where for a while I couldn't fit my sleeves through it. So I had to wear the same sweatshirt, 2 sweatshirts. I had to cut a sleeve off and wear that alternating each day. I finally got to the point where I'm allowed to take this off, but I finally got to the point where I could put my thumb through it and not hurt it by going through a tight sleeve. This is the first day I've worn a actual full sweater that I put my head through instead of a zippy, right?
Nice.
That if you imagine like that every day for neurodivergence, where they're doing those sorts of things that no one is aware of, right? Like someone has to have their car be the catch-all for all their disorganization, and you get in their car and you're like, what the hell's happening? Or the opposite for me. My car is immaculate. Every time I trade in a car, the guys are like, it's like new. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's a thing, right? So there can be these lived experiences of these traits that are the words used in the DSM are so marginalized, like rigid or routine or
Obsessive.
obsessive. Yeah, those kinds of things.
Obsessive would be the other word there, Dana.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
how we process, right? That sort of revelation for me around a soft sign, if you will, was how to learn, was the needing to know why everything. I can't just rotely remember things. I have to know the why. I think that's why I did really well in graduate school, because by the time you get to graduate school, it's deep dives into the why. You're no longer
Deep.
having to just say, "Oh, this little bit of info. Now go take a test." Why, right? And that's how we learn. So that's not described in the DSM. That's not something anybody talks about with ADHD or dyslexia for that matter, or autism, right? So
Yeah.
there's all those sort of lived things that are secret, internal. I'll have when I get in bed at night, if the covers don't sort of start in just the right way, I'll get out of bed and have to do it again, and then when it's perfect, it's like, I can relax. So I think like adults have learned all the things that they know to kind of calm their nervous system down or how to cope. And those are not behaviors to like suppress or get rid of unless they're like never leaving the house because they're taking hours and hours to do those things. Then maybe you would want to see if they want to change that. But all those things, when I start describing those kinds of things to people that don't know autism, they're like, oh, that's a thing. And I'm like, yeah, oh yeah, it's a thing. Soft
Yeah.
signs, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I really, I mean, I love the lived experiences. And I,
Mhm.
you and I have spoken about this on other episodes. But I really do believe that the sensory system is the connector. Like,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like the foundational immediate way in which the body is collecting information.
Hmm.
And many people don't know, like, there are 8 senses. There's not our
Hmm. Yeah.
5 typical one, there's 8.
Yeah.
And when you know that there's 8 and you know about the other 3 that people don't usually talk about, which maybe we can do another episode on that one.
Hmm.
Even though we've done proprioception before as its own
Yeah.
thing, a long, long time ago we did, as
Yeah.
one of the 3 that we don't usually think about. But it's really this idea of, for me, it's like, how big are the cups in each of those 8 sensory
Yeah.
categories? Those are not changeable cup sizes. That's
Yeah.
what you're born with. And
Yeah.
then some cups fill very quickly. Some cups are very big and they need a lot of input to fill them or even to
Yeah.
register that there's something in there. But that everyone's task is to really make sure that their cups are, just right, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you
Right.
think about it that way, for me, um, what also gets, I think, what's another kind of soft sign is the way in which someone thinks. It's
Yeah.
like, ooh, that's an open loop that I must close.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, whether it's I got into the bed, didn't feel right. I got to get back out,
Mhm.
reset.
Yeah.
I get back in, loops closed. It feels
Yeah.
good, loops closed.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that loop closing or like that, I need to think about something in exhaustion too,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
some of
Mhm.
those things, which is
Yeah.
like the why, Dana, right? Why? Well, why? I can't
Yeah.
memorize that unless I understand why. And
Yeah.
so, which is probably why you're such a good therapist or a
Mm.
psychologist,
Mhm.
because psychologists really, we do really want to understand why something is happening for somebody,
Yeah. Exactly.
which is bamboozles my mind with some of our colleagues because I'm like,
I
you didn't ask
know.
why? Like, you didn't ask why that they wanted to eat the same thing every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not because they're rigid and trying to make people's lives difficult. They have no executive functioning skills. This
Yeah.
is what they know as works. They know how to make this. It's
Yeah.
easy to plan.
Yeah.
The budget, it's within budget. Like,
And it's
the thing
predictable.
is,
I know what it's going to taste like, and yeah, I know how
they
my
don't.
body's going to respond to it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, it's really setting them up to leave bandwidth open for
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
things because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
cognitive resourcing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I agree. Like, these kind of edges, these esques, these,
Mhm.
it is really something that's noticeable. I think it's like just noticeable to you that you notice, just me, huh?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. I think that's why when you talk to other neurodivergent folks and they start telling you things and
yeah.
disclosing, and you're like, oh, that's that
Yeah.
whole neuro tribe. I think that's why that blew up so
Yeah.
much, because it was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is actually things you do. I
Yeah.
posted yesterday about we have a little Christmas tree that we put up this year because I wanted to make it easy with my thumb. And we had it for several years. And this year I'm like, it's super dusty. I'm just going to get rid of it. I'm going to donate it.
Yeah.
And I felt so sad putting that thing in the bag in my car to take to Goodwill. I was like, oh my God, the tree is so sad. So I posted about that. Everybody they're like, I totally get it. I 100% understand that. Whereas a neurotypical person might look at me like, and then I had another creator who's also like one of us, a psychologist that knows autism. He says, I actually think those things actually do have feelings. I think that there's
Yeah.
another realm we're not aware of. And I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, but are those things being asked on your typical psychologist assessment? No. It's why I love when people come to an assessment with me. If they've got lists of stuff that they've noticed that they keep track of, that's gold to me, because then I can see those lived experiences and say, oh, that fits in there, that fits in there, that fits in there. Right. I want to know more. I want to get what's under the iceberg, not just what's showing above the water, which is really what the DSM is.
Yeah, and I think what shows above the water is highly influenced through systemic thinking, right?
Oh, big
And
time.
what is
Yeah.
quote unquote normal or abnormal or whatever. Routines, and it's funny to me because I always say to people, like, when people get on top of routines, it's like everybody has routines. Like,
Yeah.
I park in the same darn spot in a parking structure,
Right.
no matter if that parking structure is empty.
Yeah.
And there's lots of reasons for that. One, I've got a million things moving in my mind. I don't want to have to think about where I parked.
Yeah, it's just easier.
I always park in the same spot. Like, I do funny, and I don't meet full criteria. We've spoken about this on the show.
You get a little annoyed though when someone else is in there and you can't park there.
Well, I mean, I'm good on the floor as long as I'm on the floor. That floor in a general area. No, but I do get annoyed if it's completely full.
Yeah,
it does mess me up. I have to then like take a picture and like text it to like my daughter or like my husband and be like, hey, just because I want to let it go. Like, I don't want to have to, like, I don't want to have to think about it and then come back to the car, go to my usual spot and be like,
see, there's an adaptive reason you like that. So you don't have to worry about thinking about it, where it is and remembering and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And I've got the funny thing too, like Dana, and I like an immaculate car.
Yeah.
As well. And I have to have a certain amount of gas in it.
Yeah. And that some of these things can kind of like be, I would say, contagious. Like that never bothered me before, but my wife is so paranoid about not having. And then you hear this, if it's really cold, you should have at least half a tank. And I totally do that now. I start to get nervous when I have half a tank versus just down at the end. Yeah,
ridiculous.
Totally.
It's like ridiculous.
So everybody has them, these little isms, right?
Yeah. And again, like neurodiversity, the idea of neurodiversity is that neurological variance is normal. And so everybody is going to have some just normally there's variability. Yeah. That's not a bad thing. I think it's like when it comes, I don't know if it's like, but the degree of how weird it is to normal is what makes it weird. And it's like, well, I'm not saying that some things can be annoying to people or some things, right? But it's like, I guess it's like kind of checking our own maybe reactions to some of these things. Yeah. And we're not obviously promoting, going out there and doing weird, harmful stuff. Like, that I think people can, I think sometimes we get those people that are like, oh, what are you saying?
It's going to black and
do
white.
Whatever you want and who cares? Like, no, obviously we do want some consideration and treating each other with respect and establishing safe spaces to be, that's of course what we want. But
when we talk about those kind of oppressive forces, they can come from people we know in our life. And I may be new to this show, and I apologize if other people have known about this already, but are you aware that the DSM has a conflict of interest in terms of how many people that in the International Psychiatric Association that were responsible for putting that together received payment?
What?
From various places like drug companies, special interest groups. Oh, so this is something that's just hit the news. I was just thinking as you were talking, all these levels of oppression, and it's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that even how these things are defined in the diagnostic manual for our field may have influence based on money. And then I'm thinking, the whole sort of machine of special ed and all those kinds of things, and just oppressing people in general, keeping them down. I mean, we've talked about systematic oppression in terms of race on this show a lot, and other diversity categories. That's being done with all of the diagnoses and the DSM. I mean, it's everywhere, right? So if you think that even our sort of categorical descriptions of things that are from something like that are this institutionally sanctioned sort of thing by those in power, it has a huge influence, right? And that's what you and I do some of this podcast for, is to dispel some of those, and to have people just realize it's not as rigid as that. Like, oh, you're saying everybody's neurodivergent now. No, we're not saying that. But we're saying there is room for a difference between a lived experience and what's in something like the DSM, or what our field tends to look at and assume. Well, you can make eye contact, so you can't be autistic. Oh, please kill me.
You're married.
You're married. Yeah. You have a job. Yeah.
Oh, you have emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, you've got social. You can make small talk.
Every time I see the commercial for the good, is it the good? No, the Good Doctor, not the Good Doctor.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's called The Good Doctor.
Yeah, and he kind of talks like a robot, like this, and he talks like this, and I'm like, really? Do we really need to?
I mean, Dana, you and I have spoken about media on this show before, and I guess if you need to portray someone in one way, what we need is a lot of different portrayals. Like that's
the point. Because it is a lot of gray, and it's three-dimensional. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But let's kind of move away from. That's the problem. Like, let's move away from classic autism. Yeah. Like in its own. I'm not
the stereotype of it. Yeah.
Right.
That most people think of when they hear the word autism. Yeah.
And that, can I just say too, which, Big Bang Theory, like, really cracks me. I mean, big, for those of you that, but what's really great is, there's a lot of different communication styles and personalities, and are we saying that everyone, the whole crew on Big Bang Theory, with the exception of Penny, is that her name?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is autistic? Right? Can we
neurodivergent,
say that?
maybe not. Yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
neurodivergent.
Yeah.
I mean, 100% neurodivergent. But this is what I mean, though. It's was so cool to see an ensemble cast like this, kind of hitting some different levels of that, all in one space. Like, that was,
and even as you see,
really cool.
That show is so great, because when you see the early episodes of Jim Parsons, he is more like the stereotype, even though the writers they always denied to the public we weren't writing a character. And I'm like, really? It kind of seems like you have. But as the years go on and he has that support and his friends understand him more, there is that sort of loving hold of him, like, oh, we love him despite the fact that we want to kill him sometimes. That's why, actually, one of the reasons I really do like that show. I think it does a good portrayal of someone who, and then with young Sheldon, so you get to see how he was raised, that there were reasons, his mom really sort of helped him a lot, and he got used to that. And he's a white male, so he had all white straight male in the show, so has all this privilege. He expects it. So there's so many layers in that show that can really speak to what we're talking about, versus the sort of softer ones where people don't know, but they still have some of those issues, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know if you guys are comfortable with this, but what are your asks, or, soft, edgy,
your lived experiences.
Your lived experiences.
Yeah.
What are those for you? And that, we're expecting variance here, people.
Variance is good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We wouldn't.
That's another t-shirt idea. Variance is good.
Oh, variance is good. Yeah. Ooh, that's a very low-key thing too.
That is a very low-key thing.
I just finished. I decided, Dana, that I was going to finally. I saw every episode of Loki except for the last one.
I think because on 4, so don't do any spoilers.
Okay. So I won't do any spoilers. But the reason why I didn't want to watch the last episode is because I know that the show is done.
Oh,
there's no more Lokis after this.
Damn it.
So I was like, if I don't watch the last episode,
it'll never happen.
It's not done for me.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
But when you're delayed in an airport for a very long time and you're like, actually, I do have it. I think I'm going
Yeah.
to watch the last episode. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, let's talk about
Yeah.
that after you've watched it. I won't do any spoilers.
Yeah. And then there's like some loss in that and so on. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, just talk to me about like the doctor regenerating. I bawl my eyes out. Okay, what? That's fine.
Oh,
We
you know
don't have to
that
talk about-
just really quick before we end
Yeah.
too, that idea of why do those sorts of series and movies and all that appeal so much to neurodivergence? There's something there that's like that culture of that. I mean, not to say that neurotypicals don't like those things, but we're like over the moon crazy for that stuff. There's something
Oh,
there too, right? The other sort of finding power, and we love those stories that go on 50 million different wormholes, and you have to really pay attention. It's like almost like a secret handshake. We love that stuff. Yeah, love it.
oh, yeah. One of my clients who was diagnosed in her mid-20s, because she's such an amazing masker, she was talking to me about when she was 8 or 9, she created her own written spreadsheet about how many times the character showed up in this story or that story. And she had these like beautiful subcategorizations of different genres and all of this.
Yeah,
and now she does
yeah.
it on an Excel spreadsheet. But I said,
Cool.
if that wasn't diagnostic, and it's like she lives in these characters. I mean, and I think it's because it's so resonant.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh my gosh, that's how I feel, but I've never been able to say it. I've never
Yes.
known how to say that, and I've never known how to show it, and that's it. That's it. Anyway,
Yeah.
we can.
It's
can
like
talk about
organizing scripts. She's externalizing organizing scripts. It's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. She's like, when I've done, blah, blah, I'm like, wow. I mean, some of the things she says, I'm like, and
I
you were
love it.
diagnosed at what, 24? Like master masker is all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
man. All right, you guys, we will see you and in the next episode. So
All
be
right.
good to you.
Bye, everybody.